Used against you.
Yep, go ahead.
Okay.
I can only
We're
go
live.
2 feet above the height ordinance if you put on the those kinds of. It's on this, it's hard in the grass and people.
I feel like my mother is better with her out.
So many people from the neighborhoods, and it's true, right? Even if you can have a less, you don't want to do before it's anything.
We have different.
It's 80% of it, so you know, it's serious. It's not, but they don't help it, but. So you know.
I think the type of change is better.
You know what happened? I would find out. You would think.
Yeah. They did. I actually checked this morning on YouTube, and I got this, that's how it was. Oh, yeah. Okay. 7 o'clock, shall we? All right, well, open the meeting with the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag. And we follow the which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. All righty. Good evening, everyone, and this is the regular monthly meeting of the Smithfield Township Planning Commission, January 12, 2023. Should we do the minutes first, or should we do the reorganization first?
I would do the reorganization first.
Yeah, do the reorganization
Yeah,
first.
why not?
Yeah, the first order of business, I'm gonna take it ever so slightly out of order on the agenda. This is the one time a year where we reorganize the officer positions here on the board. And so there are no nominations, we just have the people who are here presently. So let's start with Chairman. Anybody want to make a nomination? Yes.
I nominate Mr. Scott Amori.
Second.
All right. Anybody else wish to do this to themselves? Okay. All in favor? Aye, I guess I'll vote. There we go.
Good luck, bud.
Thanks. Next, Vice Chairman. Currently is Robert Moses.
I nominate Mr. Moses.
Okay.
Second.
All right, Dave Strunk nominates, seconds the nomination. Anybody else? Anybody else interested? Want to be up? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All right. Michael, you were secretary. Do you want to still be secretary?
I'm not sure I have much responsibility in that role since I have a recording secretary.
Yeah.
So yes.
Nominate Michael.
That's even more the reason you want that.
All right, then Bob, Robert Moses nominates Michael Albert. I'll second that. Anybody else? All in favor?
Aye.
And he's not here to defend himself, but recording secretary Lucas DeBartolo.
Well, just look at these minutes, Scott.
Would you like to change that to you? Or is it right, you're gonna start doing that? or-
So Lucas is actually on vacation right now, so he would be here.
You're just filling in.
But yeah, Lucas will do it.
Glad I worked that out, making sure that I was supposed to do that.
Yeah, no,
Perfect.
just tag team him for us.
Okay.
Well, I'll nominate Lucas. You nominate Lucas.
Sure. And I'll second Lucas's as a nominate, as a second on that nomination. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so we have our positions set. Now, let's take a look at the minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Second.
Give me 1 second here. I was halfway through
They're
the
quite
report.
articulate section.
They are, yeah, they are.
We're good.
Yeah. And the solar ordinance stuff is in there. All right. Was it seconded? The second.
I did.
Okay, second minute. Any discussion on the minutes from December 8th? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, they are approved. Good. All right. Do we have any public comments on the agenda before we go into the new business? plans?
Before we get to Mr. Chair, may I just state, we need to select the meeting dates again as a note.
Oh, do we?
And the work sessions, just, I'm assuming they're gonna be the same, but it's on the agenda, the underneath the altar.
Oh, okay, you know what, you're right, I didn't even notice that, yeah, I would propose that we still do it on the second Thursday of each month, I'll make that motion for our regular meetings.
Second. Okay.
Seconded by Dave Strunk, all in favor? And I will also make the motion that if for some reason we need a work session, it will be the last Thursday of each month if needed. Seconded by Mr. Strunk, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Make a motion, we nominate Martha to be on the board.
I think you have a full board at the moment.
Yeah. Actually, we do have a full board, don't we?
Didn't we have another person?
We don't decide who's on the board.
I know, I was supposed to.
Mary Ann, wasn't there someone being perceived?
Yes, Marianne Cannell submitted a letter of interest. She was at the board meeting last night and she actually expressed that she would be interested in also serving on the zoning hearing board. So she fills that spot for us.
Okay, good. So we would have a spot there for for Martha.
I don't believe so, because you two were reappointed last night. You had left by that point, but you two were reappointed, so you have a full 7. Yep.
But aren't we a 9?
No,
Member board?
7.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, we're 7.
But thanks for the vote of confidence, maybe sometime in the future.
Although we do need some diversity in terms of gender, race,
Yes,
age, lots of
Absolutely.
things, so.
she was on the board.
I know.
She was, yes.
I know.
2 years.
Worked well with her.
Yeah,
Yeah, sure did.
No doubt.
that's when I was first appointed, that's when I was first appointed back then. All right, new business and plans to act on. Franklin Hill Manor Land Development Plan, did something came in, you emailed me,
Yes, I did.
what did you email me?
Mr. Mecca said that although they have made revisions to the plan, they're still waiting on the sanitary septic approval and waiting to hear from their attorney as to whether or not the landowners are willing to agree to that, I would call it an extension or stormwater placement along that private road, which names escapes me now.
That Albert Lane.
Yeah, Albert Lane. So he said, based upon that, he would like to have it all done before he comes in again. And he provided an extension through April 14 or April 13 of this year. So that being said, there's really nothing to take.
Well, other than table it, I guess.
Make a motion, we table it.
Well, table it till when? Do we want to do it February 9, table it till, or do we want to?
When is the decision must be made?
No, they had,
I'm just checking.
yeah,
right
yeah,
now.
we're all looking at the calendar here.
I think it is the 14th of April.
Oh.
So in there, we would have a February 9 meeting and a March 9 meeting.
And even an
Frankly,
April meeting.
we have April
I
13.
mean, it's
meeting.
the 13th the day before, but.
But yeah, but we do have,
Right, if you recommend, then the supervisors won't have time to meet.
It has to be, they have to be the next meeting. They don't show up the next meeting or do an extension, it's not.
okay,
What is the motion now?
Table
to win?
table it to
Yeah.
February 9.
That's your motion.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll make that.
Unless you want to hear, I know I think there's people here for that, I don't know if there's any.
Well, we will, but let's table it, then we'll hear it.
Okay.
Think, I mean, we're able to table it at this point. So it's, Michael Albert's motion, I'll second that, all in favor? All right, now you guys are here. For that Franklin Hill Manor again.
Right.
Is there anything you want to, is there anything you want to tell
I've
us?
been coming here for a year,
I know you have,
since last January.
yeah,
And I
Sir,
guess
could I
I'll
get your name,
continue to come.
please?
yeah,
I'm sorry, Steve Peddle,
Thank you, sir.
and we really had no information. I know they were supposed to reach out to the property owners. They failed to reach out to any of us. I guess that's a requirement or a request from the township that
Yes.
they reach out to us.
yes,
What are they coordinating with them?
They need.
they need to
easements.
deal with this,
For storm, right?
Yeah, the cross pipes beneath Albert Lane,
yeah,
at the end, there's riprap being proposed, which is required. And that riprap goes beyond the Albert Lane right of way onto the private property. So they need easements from those property owners to place the river.
Well, that, I'm the property owner that you're talking about.
Yes,
All right,
May I have your name, sir?
Lynn Lazoy,
Thank you, sir.
and that pipe was never, I never given permission 40 years ago to put that pipe in there, number one. All right, the township done that probably before you guys were even involved. All right, but the thing of it is, I don't want the water on my property, I got enough trouble with water. Right, so and nobody said anything to us about it, so it's gonna be, definitely be a problem.
okay. If, Ron, if they revise the plan, do we start over? Does that
Well,
start
the
the clock
90 days, the clock would start over again, but I'm never quite comfortable with that, if you know what I mean. I always like to have an extension in it too, but yes, if they revise the plan. I don't know if it has been formally revised and filed. I'm looking at the plan that was here on our engineer's desk, and that shows the revision date, last revision date of September 28, 2022. So I don't know if there's anything more that's come in, but his email to me said they changed, they made the revisions to the plan as requested by the engineer, but they needed again, either property owner's permission with respect to the cross pipes for the stormwater sewer, and again, there is some issue with respect to the sanitary sewage, but I don't remember what exactly that was right now.
So our latest revision date is on the plans is December 5th, 2022. This is an old set of plans.
December. What was the date of the plans?
The date, the last revised date.
Oh, that's when they did it, but then they asked us, okay, we didn't even look at it, but then they asked us to move it till today.
Right.
And if John, if they don't get approval from property owners to get that easement, then the current plans don't work, correct?
I think it's gonna be an interesting situation. I understand Mr. Lemoyne's position that pipe has been there for, according to his testimony, 40 years. I don't know what kind of rights that established for the drainage pattern. They're required by ordinance to put certain improvements in as a result of their development. They're maintaining that same drainage pattern. It could get interesting. I don't know the answer.
See, I don't know, originally when that happened, Jim, everybody know who Jim Litz was? Right, you know, who Jim, right? He's the one that put it in there. And I was gone that morning and I come back and I heard him just digging the stuff back, and I went back to see what was going on. And he had the pipe already dug in and the catch thing or whatever there, and I said to him, I said, what are you doing? Well, he said they had trouble here, he said the water here, I guess, and the neighbors back there was hollering about or something, so they decided they were gonna run a pipe across. I never give, I told him, I said, well, I'm not giving you, you know, I don't want it on my property, right? I mean, that's where it ended. At that time, I didn't have enough sense to do anything more about it, but.
If I can just piggyback on that. As everybody here knows, the water problem in our township has gotten worse as it's, I've never seen it as bad as it's become over the last couple of years. It's still, with that pipe in there, the water just, when it comes down there, I have videos that I'm gonna submit that I'd like you to look at. The amount of water that comes off of that property, it's tremendous. And you're gonna cut it, they're gonna cut all the trees down, put up roofs.
I'm sorry, did we get your name?
Steve Peddle. Yeah, Steve Peddle, Hetteel. And it seems to be more frequent that the water backs up. Just when we had that ice storm or the batch of cold, it rained before that, it was all ice. It just continues to back up and the water doesn't stop coming, it continued to come. And I took some videos of that too. It just seems like it continually gets worse. I don't have any faith that that company is going to do what they say. None at all. That they'll be able to stop that water with their berms or whatever. they, say they're gonna put in there. And I have been, you can look at it, I mean, I know John, I've showed him in the past. But it's gonna, if he can guarantee me that, yeah, I'll feel better. But it's a battle that,
Is this associated with classic quality homes?
yes,
Well, I owned that property, the whole property in the beginning. When we had it subdivided, that 5 acre tract that they're trying to build on was supposed to be for one house. We went in there to get perk it. We had a hell of a time finding a place to get perk at that time. If things are done differently today, I understand that. But back then there was a problem. We finally got it to perk. That's what we found. But we've sold it as a one piece situation. And if it stayed that way, it wouldn't be too bad, but to go in there and put 4 or 5 houses in there and do what they want to do, it's all ledge. It's like Steve said, you can go back or you can dig down a foot and a half in the back in there, and solid ledge. I had the same problem. I tried to put an orchard in my front field. I went down 12 inches and I was solid ledge. The whole field, everything's ledge over there. So it's a problem, and the water is definitely a problem, and I don't want the water over on me like that.
Okay. Well, they have to do.
Question. I like to always assume ignorance instead of malice. Sirs, if you don't mind giving me your contact information, I will forward it to the people that are doing this.
I can have my wife send you the
Yeah.
videos.
Yeah, and that would
send
be
you a
great,
link
just
in there.
because they might not have a good
Okay.
way to get a hold of you if something might have gotten lost in the mail. And if we can put the 2 of you or 3 of you,
I'll get
together,
your information.
it might help. Yeah.
Well, there's no reason they couldn't get a hold of me because I'm retired and I'm there all the time. Okay, I might not come knocking my door and my 2 big German shepherds won't give them a friendly welcome, but I'm always there. All right.
All right, so they have to be back February 9th. Or they gotta do something. Something's gotta occur.
Thank you for your time.
You're welcome.
Thanks, sorry you're
Thanks,
coming out,
Dave.
yeah, all these extensions.
I'm sorry, I'm hard to hear.
So I said, sorry you keep coming out for all these extensions.
Yeah.
Something that we're passionate about. I mean, it's an issue
So
there.
you live there, I understand. Oh, I understand.
If they alleviate that water problem, that's awesome, but I have no confidence that they're gonna be able.
And I don't want it to be alleviated over my field, on my property. That's the problem. Okay,
My experience is this is a company that does nothing until they're sued, and even then, it's very difficult.
yeah. I mean, it's a tough situation right there. But if they decide not to put the 4 in, put one home in there like it was supposed to be originally, we'll have a problem.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Perhaps solar ordinance.
You just want to let their information.
All right, well, yeah, finish up. All set?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay. The draft solar ordinance, now, that's 7B here on our agenda. Julie was nice enough to prepare and send around to everybody the draft solar ordinance. And the yeoman's work here, the heavy lifting was done by Dave, which I have to tell you, I'm gonna publicly thank you a great deal for that, because those comments were terrific. And I understand that you and Julia did talk about some of these.
We did, most of them were just, minor stuff.
Yeah, not that minor.
They were.
Things like having the electrical building standards in the
Yeah,
room.
but that was, again, it wouldn't have been fine without it, but we're okay.
We're okay. And did we get a new draft of that done with the revisions yet? Do you want to do
Not
it for
since
next week?
yesterday.
No, I understand. That's okay.
Yeah,
Please, it was a long night. I understand. It's okay.
yeah.
I mean, seriously. Do
Um,
you want to send it around for us and then just keep it on the agenda for next month?
so
can look
we
at?
can do that. The only thing to be aware of regarding Dave's comments, whatever we discuss tonight, I'm going to add to the comments that Dave has made, update this. I do have to ask for a little bit of direction from you guys this evening. But the way that our MPC 609.2 hearing is working means that the board needs to pass this on March 27th, which means the final draft from the Board of Supervisors needs to be released to the, ready for review for them for February 8th. So that means that this is kind of your last time to look at this before we have to go through and adopt it. And at this point, if there's still things wrong with it after that point, we'll do another update. But to stay along with our time schedule that is mandated under the MPC, we got to do some of this tonight.
Okay,
On top of that, I was contacted by BWA, their executive director, Alex Jackson. Broadhead
oh,
Water.
water.
They have received grant funding to look over these sorts of things related to water quality. So I sent him off the draft that you are looking at right now earlier today. He's going to take his professionals, have a look at it, and they're also going to recommend whether or not BWA feels that the board and you guys should pursue with going after the recommendation for Eric Koopman regarding the overlay as related to power lines, or if we wanted to go with a zoning district, saying this was only allowed in, industrial or something like that. But I look forward to getting their comments. We'll absolutely get them circled into you. They said they will be ready to put it on the 25th. So from there, it's going to be, we're in the final stretch with this, whether we want to be or not, and we're going to move forward. So if it's okay with you guys, I'd like to go and address a couple of the things that, Dave and I still had up in the air, and then we would move forward.
Okay, go ahead.
Couple comments as well.
Okay, great. So first thing, if you guys turn to page,
Actually, we don't have, I don't even.
I'm so sorry.
You can share your screen up there on the big board.
I don't know what color.
Yeah, I don't know if I can do that, but if, Robert, if I could bother you, can you pick up a couple prints for me?
Couple,
If I go print something, can you grab it for me?
Yeah.
Sorry about that, John. How many copies do we need?
I don't need one. You can probably share it too.
Yeah,
Michael and I are sharing.
yeah, and then, Doug and I are.
This one was.
Yeah.
It's only 60.
Yeah. These comments from Mr. Strong, Julia, were they emailed? Because either I missed them or I misplaced them.
They did get emailed. I'll double check and make sure that you
I got
got
the
that
email.
email.
Today,
No,
some time ago.
I can't read his comments.
Because I have these files sort of blended together that
Because they're in
the
Word
warehouse
format.
ordinance that I'm working on and down to his stuff.
so what it came in is, it came in as, they did it as a Word document
December 28th.
with line breakout.
All right.
One's right in it, so you can follow. Yeah,
That's
that's
not
right.
ringing any bells to me at all.
Okay,
So I will get that.
What page are you referencing, Julie?
I'm on page 5. While Robert
You
is
mean, I have it.
working on
No,
getting
you
this.
sent to me and Doug too.
yeah.
So sorry about that. We're getting the copies now. But while we're waiting for the copies, one of the things that we need to discuss is a height limitation. I kind of gave you guys the heads up. We wanted to consider a height limitation for like they have at Northampton, where they're putting solar above parking lots. Right now, we've got a 15-foot height for any ground systems, and that won't be tall enough for anything over a parking lot. Need to do a little bit of research into how tall that can be. But I think that is a good idea to include in the ordinance. I've seen a couple more with that. And if you guys don't mind, I'd like to do that.
For over a parking?
Yeah, like at Northampton.
Like at
Community
Northampton Community
College.
College?
Yeah,
And what page are we?
page 5, number 2, right at the top height.
But isn't that for ground mounted
Yes,
systems?
yes, because if you put solar on a parking lot, it would be considered a ground mounted system.
So if you put it on the 5th level of a parking lot, that's considered ground mount or ground mounted?
Well, the way Northampton has it, they just have posts. It's almost like a roof or a carport.
Like, yeah.
But it's solar panel.
Okay, that's fine, as long as I.
But those should definitely be allowed, I think.
I'd like to make a comment on that you and I discussed.
Yes,
I have it in my house, I don't know if you ever noticed, I have 3 poles with solar panels on them. And when you change the angle to get the winter sun, that back comes up more, which raises it up, and it's more than 15 foot, which is what this says.
So that would be the mounting place.
Well, yeah, but you can't really go lower because then you'll hit your head on it.
No, 15 feet would be the mounting.
Well, that's not clarified. It just says 15
It
foot.
says 15 feet, right?
Right, but.
But what you-
is that to here or is it to here?
Because what if you had a 25-foot solar panel, you have 15 plus,
Yeah.
plus 12 and a half.
So
I'm
my,
not saying, just,
yeah, I think we need to look at that. I'm happy to measure mine. I didn't do it yet, but I can tell you what it is. But the reality is that the developer is not gonna wanna go high. Because the higher he goes, the more structure he needs to hold that when
Yeah.
the wind blows it.
With a sail, yeah.
so what's the benefit of adding a height restriction at all?
Yeah, I mean, we already have a height restriction within
Somebody needed one more?
the zoning district of 35 feet.
So why do we even need to have 15 feet at all? If they're not, if the developer's not gonna really
No,
want
they're
them.
not going to, because if the higher it gets, the harder it is to keep the wind from blowing it over. They're heavy.
And the cost to do that is more.
Exactly. They're gonna wanna keep it as low as they can.
As long as as long as it's understood that that's, the 35-foot height limit is also applicable. Would it still be applicable to something like this?
Yeah, it's a structure within the zoning district, so.
Well,
I don't know why it wouldn't be.
And as Ron had said, what if there's a 4-car or 4-level parking garage and they wanna put it up there? Well, is the parking garage above 35 feet? I don't know.
Well, yeah, they do, they got the variance process.
Yeah.
So I guess the question is then, do we say ASECS shall not exceed 15 feet from the mounting point?
I think we just delete that
Or
one.
do we just delete it all?
I don't think it's needed. 'Cause you're
I
not
don't
gonna
think
do
you should
any
delete it all. I would say that the the ground mounted accessory, whatever you call it, unit, shall not exceed the height limits as per the zoning orders. At least you have some definition as to what applies, if in fact that's what the commission wants to do. They may not do 35 feet, they may want to do something else. They may want to keep the 15 or make it 10 or make it 20, but
I don't think it's
you
an
should
issue.
keep at least something there if you're gonna get rid of it, so at least there's some definition as to height.
Does 20 work, David?
It might, I'd have to measure mine. I can't imagine anybody making it higher than what I
I
have.
guess my question is, why are we adding more complication to a document
Right.
if there's no, I'm also curious, why would you not want it to be higher? I guess you don't want to see these hideous solar.
Much
panels.
of this was written with a lot of community input. One of the things Dave and I had talked about is there's a lot of stuff in here that is really unfeasible. Like there's a portion in here that says you're not going to put the glare onto your neighbor's house.
Right.
Because it's a very large concern for the public, but anyone in their right mind trying to get solar energy will never have the glare reflecting in that manner. It'll be, right towards the sun, and that will never be an issue.
Yeah,
But it's something people worry about,
right,
because if you wanted to be a jerk with your solar panels, you could.
right.
So word on the height restriction, Doug, or excuse me, sorry, Dave, will measure his panels. We can move it up to 20 to keep a restriction as Mr. Karasak wants, and we can move on for now.
I do think we need to clarify the mounting post and the actual panel height, because they're two different numbers.
Why don't we just make it
Okay.
35 feet, and then it doesn't matter whether it's a poster thing, because it'll never be that.
I'm okay with that.
Okay.
They're
so-
never gonna go that.
Oh, they're never gonna go 3 stories.
They're never gonna do.
No, that's true. I'd say make it 35 then.
Well, I'll just keep it with the underlying zoning district
Yeah.
then.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was Ron's recommendation.
Yep.
Yeah, it's allowed by zoning.
Wonderful.
But I think really what you're talking about for this is the overlay. I think really we're talking about you doing it as an overlay, not as a separate zoning thing like in the industrial, because this could be put on any number of things.
Right, and that is one of the things we definitely need to discuss.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that it should be generally as a.
let's keep going through.
Yeah, okay, go ahead, sorry.
Well, first of all, if you guys understand, there's two different types of solar systems. The ones that the accessory structure,
Correct,
which would go on a residence, and the other ones are the commercial, huge ones that
correct.
generate power.
Yeah, it's, 20.
So there's two different distinctions.
And just so I understand that point, is there a slightly third one, or is it considered an accessory when it's a commercial building that's doing a fairly large solar field for itself?
It's kind of gray area because you could have a warehouse that has a mega one and they don't use all the power and it becomes a commercial production.
Yeah, and also, I mean, I guess that's, excuse me for really having dived into deep as I should have, but, if you're selling back to the grid, does it become commercial? Or is it about the size of it?
No, I would not even get into it.
I'm just,
No. I wouldn't even get into it. Nobody knows where the election.
okay, as long as we're properly defining. the difference,
Okay, that's,
which I think we are, okay,
Mhm.
carry on.
I don't think it's a harm to worry about. to be perfectly honest with you.
Great. The next question is kind of more directed to Ron. There are portions in here regarding voltaics, which is when you have solar panels and use something like sheep or grass or grow other things around the panels to keep them in the agricultural industry. Dave had expressed concern over and wondering if we could outlaw the use of things like pesticides and chemicals in that area to help prevent them
That's
from the
mentioned a
water.
couple times.
Yes, because the way this is designed is to say you're allowed to use chemicals like fertilizer to help the plants grow, but you're not allowed to, outright murder everything underneath the
So
solar
did say
panels.
something about invasive plants that.
Yeah,
an
Yeah, like if
exception
you've
for
got
that.
knotweed in a solar field, you're gonna wanna do everything you can to get rid of it.
Right.
But I don't think the township has any jurisdiction within its ordinances to say, hey, you can't use chemicals on
I
your
agree
property.
with you. I don't think we do have the right, I don't think we have the ability to do that.
I tried, sorry.
Even
Um,
if we did, how would?
How are we gonna,
Yeah.
I mean, we got enough problems with enforcement.
Yeah, I could tell you I'm putting lime down or something, right? It could be.
I just think we should encourage native plants. And we can say in there, the township discourages the use of, pesticides and herbicide because it pollutes the water system.
It does say that a couple of times, I think.
Yeah, but that also then says later, but it can be allowed when they're invasive.
Invasive plants.
Yeah, and then, so basically you're opening it wide open.
Yeah.
I just would like to see it a little bit more, even we can't outlaw it, even to discourage it. Get rid of Roundup,
I love Roundup.
ruin your aquifer.
okay, so thank you for that. Moving on. I missed converting the word county to township in a few spots, so my apologies there.
What page are we on?
Besides that, I'm flipping through, I'm on 10, I'm on 11. I'm going through to 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So then really the only last thing that I would like input from the commission on is whether or not you guys think it's a good idea to go with Koopman's suggestion of doing an overlay district related to where the lines are, or if we should consider only allowing this in the ED zone or the industrial zone or zoning
Refer
like
to the
that.
solar arrays,
Yes, sir.
not the.
Specifically, anything attached to the house as it's written in here, is a by right use anywhere. If you've got a small business in the ED zone or a home in R1, as long as it is an accessory structure, it's allowed. What
And
we're
it meets all
talking.
those criteria of not setbacks and all that
Yep,
stuff.
we still have to talk about that too. But the big question is here is where do you want to allow solar farms? And is it an overlay district or is it within a specific?
Give us some
zone?
examples of where it could go. For example, Mountain Manor, it's an R, what is that? What's it, E?
Mountain Manor is R1.
Could we allow it there? Because they could fill up that whole golf course with solar panels.
Presently as written, it could be.
Well,
No, it's not.
Oh,
right now, a solar field isn't allowed anywhere.
oh,
These people, the Montour County that I took this from said that solar is conditional use. And I think they put it in there, like in commercial. In their industrial district.
I just see where it says they're not allowed, but that's. We could also add, there were certain areas that didn't want it to be under that line.
Yeah, we could say, principal solar energy facilities are outlawed in residential R1, R2, R3, open space. Anything like that, but
But you
we
do
have
the
to
other way,
allow
say
them.
permitted only in.
Yes.
Okay, you do the converse. Yes, Robert.
I think if we look at the township is it now, just there's very few places.
Right.
Where it would actually fit.
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah, I agree with you. I
The
think that's.
airport,
I would recommend just limiting it to the M1 zone, which is to say, maybe the airport, maybe the area around the paper plant, which is really saying we don't want it. And I don't think we do in most cases here because we just don't have the room for it. And I don't think it's the kind of development that should be there.
Is there, yeah, I was gonna say, is there anywhere else, like if you said Mountain Man is probably the only other place?
Well, Mountain Manor, the Shawnee Golf Course Island,
That's probably not, because that's a flood zone, look at
The
those
Dr.
doctors.
Field. Well, that was a question I had.
I mean,
I see that we have, it's not allowed in floodways. Is there a federal requirement for that?
You are not allowed to build in a floodway. If there's a structure there that's there right now, you are allowed to fix it if something breaks.
Correct.
But you are not allowed to expand it, and you are not allowed to put a new structure in a floodway. You can with a floodplain, I believe it's a conditional use requirement.
And 2/3
but-
volume and all that stuff.
Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff, opening of doors for flow, so the house doesn't go away, but floodway, big no.
Even if you're reducing flood, something, I thought there was something about if you're,
John, I gotta defer to you on this one.
Floodway, nothing goes in there of any kind.
that makes sense.
I don't even know why you want to put this kind of infrastructure in there anyway,
well, if you
for
want.
something where you're risking.
Bunch of electricity, bunch of water.
Well, if you want, honestly, if you want to put one on the top of the Shawnee Craft Brewery.
Yeah, Robert.
And just following what I said before,
That's
I
right,
think
it's
the
not
only
commercial.
two places that I can think of in the township which are big enough for this are probably Mountain Manor and also the Swartz Farm on Fawn Road. And personally, I wouldn't like to see him in either one.
Well, I can answer to that. I just pulled up the map that Eric Koopman gave us, and the line does not go up through there, so it wouldn't work there.
The old Mountain Lake property.
I don't think it's big enough.
It has to be one of the big lines.
What does it need to be?
Yeah, it looks like, well, gentlemen, if you don't mind, I'll bring my.
Yeah, go ahead.
over. This is the map that Koopman provided to us.
It's the one.
Yes, that one. So anything that's highlighted in blue at the end of this, is part of the parcel that's over 30 acres. Yeah, and like these little guys here, the parcels that are over 30 acres may be viable for this. So this is an option. I don't know.
That property, they advertise that property as 80 acres.
The ones that, oh, yeah.
Old Mountain Lake.
Those would be the ones that.
Where am I?
Yeah.
Go over to the county.
Not the green, but.
Right, you see one right there on, yeah, we're 22 at the Moravian Academy, you know, the Moravian Academy. Right when you get on right there, there's a big, right there. 22. Yeah, it's huge.
Right there is the revenue house.
That's not that bunch of acres. That's not that big, so.
Where's that township here?
There's only so many fields you can do it.
Right here, yeah, a little bit. So this yellow line.
That's
right
the Cherry Valley.
Yeah, this is not us over here, and
You know what I mean?
but this is us,
That's Cherry Valley.
yes,
It used to be that.
which is going to.
Like if you go into the village of Marshall Street.
But those are the options that we can do. If you guys don't have this. I'm gonna choose to
Yeah.
look at it.
Yeah.
I'm inclined to agree with.
Yes,
There's one there.
It was expanded.
December 5th email was attached.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with Supervisor Lovenheim that just simplified, just say M1.
Julia, yeah, I got it. That's okay.
Julie, do you have any recommendations on that, where you think they should go? I mean, you've been staring at this for a long time.
I have been, and at this point, I've got no comment on that. I haven't taken the time to look at Eric's map. And take the overlay that he's suggesting and put it in our M1 district. My one concern with putting it only, let's say, in the M1 is I'm very curious if any of these properties intersect. Because if they don't, someone could come to us and say, you've put it in the M1 district, but there's no line over here. Therefore, it is impossible for us to use this. Therefore, you need to allow it somewhere else.
There's no line, what do you mean?
The transmission lines that are required for doing for generating power and putting it back into the thing are some sort of larger kilowatt line. Your regular telephone pole lines that feed houses and whatnot will not be
Right.
sufficient.
This is why
So-
the airport would not work, for example.
Correct,
If
because
they could
they'll-
upgrade those lines.
I mean, if they could, if they wanted to
Sure,
pay
they-
Med Ed to do all of that,
Well, we ask people to upgrade roads all the time, what's the difference?
as long as you're willing to pay for it. But as it stands right now, the line goes down, kind of crosses 80 right at exit 309, comes up and goes across the township in a northeasterly direction. So kind of where they're putting in Gateway, that area is in the zone, let's call it, but nothing really else north of that.
David,
Um,
I have a technical question, maybe John can chime in, or Julie. For example, I would love to put solar on our house.
That's not an array. You're-
Hang on, I know that, but we have one of those two conductors. You know, we're the only house on the line,
Yeah.
so we have one of those two wire little skinny conductors. Can I feed back through that? You can. Okay. Just curious.
If that voltage coming in is not 220 volts, it's probably 9,000. What is the voltage of the high voltages? High voltage. Well, when the Med Ed puts your transformer up, they're stepping it down.
They're stepping it
Correct.
down.
It's like 9,000 to 208.
Is it 9,000? Seriously?
Oh, yeah, it's way up there, maybe even 13K. Gee,
Right.
You know.
Well, it's
See,
more
what-
times than
Julie,
not.
what happens is the size of the farm, the solar farm is limited by what the transmission lines can handle.
Right,
And if the voltage is 13K, they just make the amperage so that the wires can handle it. I don't think it has to go
Yeah.
to the super high voltage, which is, whatever it is, I don't know what that voltage is.
this exceeds my
right.
layman's
Me too.
understanding, so
What
I
about
couldn't say
Chris?
for sure.
I mean, these,
Okay.
this is exclusively for these arrays, these, big
Right.
commercial solar farms.
Right.
I don't think we should tell people where they can put it based on where those high voltage lines are. And when I say high voltage, there's two levels. There's the super high voltage and the high voltage.
Right.
When you see these substations, like over there by there's a substation on the left on Route 80 over by the East Stroudsburg area. That's stepping it down from the super high voltage to the stuff that goes distributed around the town.
Right, and if someone did come in and say, well, it's not possible in the M1 because you don't have one, you have to make it available elsewhere. Then we're just back to where we are right now. This conversation, okay, well, this is the other option that goes
Right.
this way.
We didn't say you can't upgrade the power system.
And there's also that, yeah.
Yeah, so then it sounds like what I'm hearing is M1.
Okay.
Cool.
Also means that you can always change that later.
If we're restricting the conversation to the locale where these farms could exist. But if Eric's overlay is correct, then in most of our M1, I believe, David, am I right or wrong? We don't have the capacity to feed back through those.
Well, we're talking two different systems. Remember I started.
Yeah, you said super.
You have the accessory, which is you put on your house.
Right, no, I understand,
When you get that done,
right,
the power company doesn't want to buy electric from you, so then you have to make it the side, so you're using all the power. So if any does go back in, it would be no more than what you would normally use. You understand what I'm saying?
not really, but
No,
I thought it was unlimited, that what you fed back, they basically took off your bill.
They take it off your bill, correct, but you don't usually go to negative.
They don't want your bill to be zero and pay you money. They will restrict how big they allow you to put in. And
Right,
it's based on your yearly
right,
consumption.
understood, okay. But. Your bill could be zero.
Right, and my bill is probably $20.
I did take a look right at the off ramp at exit 309. We do have an M1 zone, so that was within the lines. So if you wanted to
It's
do an
38.
M1 zone, I think so.
There you go.
Where, by the
Big
paper
one's
mill?
bottom middle.
Probably the property where that cigarette shop is.
I couldn't honestly
Oh,
tell
right,
you.
yeah, the Morrissey estate.
But this is
This is the M1 right here. and-
Right along 80 is the perfect place for it.
Yeah,
No,
that would be
Yeah,
those two parcels.
what about it? Is that same as the industrial?
they just added it up. They just ran it along the gorge.
Where is the soccer fields?
The Minnesink Fields?
Yeah,
Yeah.
is that the orange?
The red.
Down in there somewhere.
Oh,
All the way down here.
Excuse me, gentlemen.
It's in the white. Oh,
Well, it's township property, so it's your little.
Yeah, they're hereabouts.
yeah, it's below, that little road right there is.
There's the railroad tracks. There's where you go.
and 80 is the dark line?
Yes, this is Route 80 right here.
Okay. All right. Cool. And you say that's about 30 acres, David? Or whoever said, Michael?
There are parcels in that area. It looks like from seeing this map that just directly south of 80, there are multiple parcels that are over 30 acres that would allow for this that are in the M1 zone.
That are M1. Wow.
I will double check this against the two and send the maps out.
Right, cool.
What?
Down the side of the mountain.
Great, okay.
So that's the gorge down in front of it.
So it could be, yeah.
Um,
Michael, what's the?
It might be, put it down there, whatever, nobody looks down there anyway.
Maybe just got. Yeah.
Very
Seems
good.
good, right? The 80 goes that way. You never think of 80 as being parallel to 209.
Yeah.
Right.
Because it turns right back.
Did you guys make that now?
No, it's done by, Monroe County, like,
Oh, okay.
Does that appear the
Nice
image?
map.
Well, actually, that,
Does appear the
that does, yeah.
It's the like gray.
Yes.
Green is residential. There's resource.
And that does open up,
Yeah, still considered resort. Yeah.
right.
I just don't see, I don't see this kind of development happening here anyway.
Exactly.
I don't either, but I want to be prepared for it.
Yeah,
I don't-
I think the
don't
important
wanna
part
do
of
what
this,
the
the important part of this is the accessory use. I mean, and I think it's good.
That you'll see.
You'll see that.
So then there's one outstanding question yet that Dave and I wanted to bring to your attention. The way front yard setbacks work is generally we don't allow any accessory structures in front of the house, so between the house and the road. There is a provision in this ordinance right now that if you have a house that is more than 250 feet back from the property, you are allowed to put solar in the front as long as it stays more than 200 feet away from the road.
Seems reasonable.
There's buffering still, vegetation required and all that anyway, right?
They don't require vegetative buffering for houses.
I was just thinking the same.
So I don't think that there's any provisions in here for a solar array if it's a accessory use because it's by right allowed.
Okay.
Yeah.
But that's something to consider. Do you want to allow it in the front yard at all? Do you not want it allowed in the front yard at all? Should we reduce those?
Right.
Dave and I had spoken about it, and part of the reason we think it's in there is because people.
Wait till these guys are done.
I'm sorry, I'm talking with the fact that I disagree with that. Not having allowed any accessory in front to begin with. Because I once tried to build a house that had a garage on a corner on the side. It was beautiful, it looked gorgeous, just like lots of houses you see, and I'm not allowed to do it in townships. Because the garage was slightly in front.
You get a variance.
No, you can't, it's not allowed.
I mean, so it's something to consider though.
I'd like to comment. I would not have been able to put my solar panels in where they are, because they're in essence in the front of the house. They're way off to the side, but they're in the front.
Right, just weird, because yours has, does it really have a front? What's the front?
Yeah, what is the front?
Well, I don't know.
Right, thank you.
I think you can make an argument, well, but he's got no road, he's got a driveway. and
He's got a driveway, he's got the
But
street.
irregardless, you could have many situations like that, and the reality is, you know, as you know, our leaders are pushing solar and wind and alternate energy sources. And if we restrict this to nothing in the front yard and there's no place to put it in the backyard because it's full of trees or it's on a slope or.
Or you can think of a big farmland with the house in the back, it would make sense like the front.
Right, well,
Well, it's
even most homes and developments, it may not work in the backyard, because there's shade trees and they don't wanna cut the shade.
What about
trees.
rooftop, Dave? I mean, is that an option?
Well, it was not an option for my house, because I got a weird roof, but it's not always an option if the house wasn't designed for it, or
Facing the right way.
before they just put a brand new roof on and now they put solar panels on, it's,
Yeah.
it's.
I think
sometimes
the
ground
idea though
out.
is not that we don't want a bunch of, the idea of this anyways, don't have a bunch of solar panels sitting in your front lawn.
I understand.
That's the.
So the 250 feet, the house has to be back to 50 or the
If-
structure?
If the house, so if this is the property,
Yeah,
the house has to be at least 250 feet back, so 250
Right.
feet of green space. And if it is, you are allowed to put solar 200 feet back from the road.
okay.
So
It would
it-
make them both
I mean, that's
match.
the only time it would be allowed in the
Right.
front yard,
If there's 250, okay.
if you've got a house 250 feet back. I'm
Otherwise,
saying that's
you need
too
to build
restrictive for
variance.
most homes in this.
That
country.
is much too.
It's too
Yeah, there's
restrictive,
not, there's.
and you're not gonna be able to, you're gonna get to a point where you're gonna want solar on your house, because the power companies aren't gonna be able to give you enough power.
Can I ask a question? So look, I'm in this boat where in my yard, I wouldn't be able to do it. I'm off, I'm down a lane off a hollow road. No one would see it, but the only place really, probably would be my front yard, and maybe do it in the back, but I'd have to take trees down. Would there be a process for people to apply for some kind of a waiver or whatever you would call it to be allowed in unusual circumstances to put it in front of their house or whatever?
Well, that would be then you have variance, Martha, because if we put it in zoning, you can't waive it like you can with subdivision and land development.
Right,
So those things, there can be certain waivers.
right.
But in zoning, we don't have the power, and neither does the zoning hearing board would be
So it would be a.
it would be variance
Variance,
request.
that you're saying that's the correct term, but
Yeah.
I mean, so that would still be a possibility.
You have to
if we
go-
asked for it.
then you have to go-
Case by case basis.
Then you have to go before the zoning hearing board and you have to make a case that it's impossible for you to do it any other way and that you're gravely.
Yeah.
I think you're putting people at a disadvantage whose houses don't face south in the back. If south is the only exposure in the front, that's the only place you can put it. One thing, depending on where your house is, you might be okay, may not, I don't think that's fair.
No,
The first thing you do when you're going down to site a location, to put a solar system in, if you stand there and you go like this, do I have clear sky? If you've got trees or any obstructions, that's not a good spot. Then you step over and you do it again. And if you end up here in the front yard, and that's the only possibility you have, and you don't allow them, then they can't put solar in.
yeah, but I think the question you're gonna get is for the neighbors that where it's white, picket fences, and you've got 20 feet of grass and that's the next one, and then someone's like just plows their whole front yard with solar panels, those neighbors are, it's a question of, that's ugly. And we're not allowed to say, well, you can't do that because it's ugly, but.
I hear you, but you know what I'm saying is, where our government's pushing things.
Well, gentlemen, something that we can consider then maybe, looking through our district regulations. Front yard setbacks are 35 and 25 feet respectively in our residential districts. So maybe perhaps, generally speaking,
For a
roughly,
secondary,
for R1, the front yard is 35 feet, for R2, it's 25. RC is 25, so then maybe in the concept of wanting to allow people to not have to deal with the eyesore of everything. Maybe if your house is more than 100 feet back, you can have it in as long as there's a
Still
50,
35.
like a 50
why don't you
foot.
just, why don't you say it can be anywhere on your property, so long as it meets the current zoning
Yeah,
requirements
we
of
can do
being
that
25,
too.
35
I
feet?
think that's what
If
you
you would
do.
like,
That's what I would do.
okay,
Yeah. That's what I do.
That's kind of what we.
I don't think it's gonna go very much, because the things are expensive. People do it.
No, they're coming down on prices.
Yeah. And then when you have
Check my house, 107.
right,
Like they said, come in and go do it for free and, get all these
everything's free.
federal benefits. Yeah, 70, I'm gonna go take out 107.
Yeah, right, you're gonna go do that, right?
$100,000 mortgage.
Yeah, right, yeah, no, yeah, right.
Yeah, there's still two, that's all.
cool.
Yeah, we'll get you.
So gentlemen, thank you. That was the last question that I had, so I'm done.
Last question, because isn't this being grouped together with the distribution center, or
Yes,
is that not on the same time frame?
it is on the
It
same
is,
time
and
frame.
And I'm working on that. You'll probably have it for next month.
Okay,
So, yeah, just
But
because,
do we have to get didn't you say we have to get this done by February 8th, and our next meeting is not till the 9th?
So the Board of Supervisors has to send all of this to you. So at that point, I mean, if you wanted to, Ron, depending on your time frame, if you guys wanted to have your work session meeting, you might be able to play test that. But Ron is still in the development phase of the warehouse portion of this. Come February 8th,
I consider
There will
that a
be-
much bigger deal.
Yeah.
than a
Yeah,
couple of solar
that's fair.
panels.
there will be, but come February 8th, you will get one ordinance that has a warehouse section and a solar section.
Well, it has its sort of distribution center section.
Warehouse distribution, or whatever you would like to call the big ugly cement building. There will be a section for that, and there will be a section for solar as well.
And then we take it up on the night.
And is the idea of that ordinance, just so I'm clear, the idea of that ordinance is going to be that it's adding a definition for a new term, which is distribution
Be
center.
adding several definitions.
Okay.
And also turning it into a conditional use.
And putting into community.
Yes, for some reason that we all missed it somehow, they are a principal permitted use in the ED zone,
Warehouses.
warehouses.
No, they're conditional in the ED zone.
I just checked this afternoon,
That's what you said last night.
Aren't they on the third column? It says warehouses. Let's say third column. It's permitted versus the conditional.
so this is ED, principal permitted uses, warehouse and wholesale.
Yeah.
I mean, so back to my question, the idea would be, there would be, I assume, a refinement
So there's
of.
no conditional uses in the ED zone?
There's like.
Oh, we took many of them out, Ron,
Yeah,
deliberately.
deliberately showing hardly any.
Right, hardly any.
These are what's.
By design.
By design, if you remember,
And that's.
That was by-
that's
that was by
the
design.
ordinance I have, okay.
Okay.
Full ring.
I have a.
yeah, it's a couple of things, right?
So. Right. Just to understand what we're going, because it doesn't sound like we're gonna have a lot of time to review it, but, essentially, we're gonna get a bunch of new definitions. The warehouse definition will get refined, so that it's clear that that is not a warehouse. Distribution, so this distribution center.
House, you're gonna have distribution center, you're gonna have truck terminal.
Okay, and all those things, and then we're gonna identify where those are allowed by right and by conditional use and where they're not. That's the main,
Yes,
okay. Great.
Well, just now when you were pointing, that is not a warehouse, or that is
Well, the thing that didn't pass this,
the thing we talked about last night.
yeah,
Yeah, okay.
that is not a warehouse. Right, so it will not, in this future ordinance, it will not be, you'll not be able to refer that to warehouse, and you will refer to the distribution center. Okay.
I did have actually, oh, sorry, when we are done with solar, I have one
Yes.
more thing.
Yep, go ahead.
Ron had mentioned it, I don't know if it was just to me or to the commission, but the Black Buffalo Land Development Plan goes out on February 9th. Seeing as we haven't heard from them, I believe, Ron, I don't want to steal your thunder, but I believe we need to act to deny that unless we get an extension.
I had recommended that.
Didn't we do
looking at it. Excuse me. It's been extended out to February 9.
Okay.
Since February 9. Even if you meet on the 8th or 9th, supervisors won't be able to meet after that. I suggested that the agenda be amended to include Black Buffalo on the plan. And that you gentlemen recommend to deny it unless an additional extension is provided.
Sounds like we need
At that time,
we need to have our work session then.
Doesn't there, 6 months on the conservation district permit expires sometime then?
I don't know, I'm looking at the time that I got from the other lawyers, so.
I have a little intelligence about that, which I'm happy to share. I went down and spoke with someone, one of the managers, actually the sales manager. Sales technology manager at the Black Buffalo site, the currently active one. And I asked him what's going on, and he said, we have new leadership. They've I think you said that, Robert, the management has changed. And he said, they don't know what they're doing, they're still thinking about the construction of the big building. And but right now they're content to operate out of that old hangar. And that's where they are.
I've forgotten what my source is, but what I've just assumed from what I've heard is that whoever's sponsoring it, who's the car company?
Yeah, Hyundai or something, wasn't it?
Yeah.
The South Koreans.
It's either run out of money or pulled money, and the thing is kind of in limbo at the moment.
It looked like it was,
So can we then so we can motion to,
You can motion to deny it completely based upon we need
Do we need
reference. I'm going to assume we can say based upon the town engineer review letter or letters. I don't have it in front of me, but you could just make that recommendation, but then they may respond and say, here's an extension. Yeah,
when is our February meeting?
ours is denied.
Well, why don't we just do that on the 9th?
Well, because.
The board needs to act on the 8th.
That's why.
Make a motion now and get it over with.
yep, I agree with
So moved.
Why don't you let sleeping dogs lie and hope they don't come back?
you. Yeah, really.
So someone has to make a motion to amend the agenda. And then there has to be a reason stated as to why the amended.
I make a motion,
The
we
agenda
get
is amended, and then you make the motion to deny or whatever.
A motion we adjourn.
Fortunately, that's Act
Agenda.
65 of 2021.
We make a motion, we amend the agenda to include Black Buffalo. And the reason is that we want to vote on it.
we have to create.
The township deadline.
Because we have a township, because the township supervisors have a deadline in our next regular meeting.
The meeting is
Which
after.
will be after the deadline for the township to act.
Right.
And then seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
And the second motion will be to deny the to recommend denial of the Black Buffalo plan based upon the numerous review letters from the township engineer, John Tressler.
And what's the
failure
I was asking a section.
Don't they have the right to respond to that letter within a certain amount of time?
Well,
Oh, they're long past that.
They're long to respond to the letter, you mean the
John's letter.
Don's letter?
Well, there's John's letter, there's the conservation district's letter, neither have been responded to.
Okay.
There's no, based on the letter and failure to respond within the time necessary for the township to make a decision on the timing required by the township.
That's fine.
But has
It sounds good.
that time to respond expired?
No, it doesn't expire until February 9th. That's when it officially expires.
And we've not heard from them at all.
We have not heard from them.
That's different.
When you say it expires on February 9th, you mean like midnight that night? February 9th?
Yes.
Well, we have our meeting on February 9th.
But the board has to act upon
Oh,
your.
yeah, sorry.
The day before.
Yeah.
We could have a work session.
Yeah, we could have a work session.
But there's nothing to do.
Yeah.
Vote on that.
I would be surprised if we don't hear anything based upon this motion, but you have to get a second and vote on it.
Okay, who seconded it? Chris seconded it.
Chris,
I missed who made the motion.
Dave or Scott.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I know everybody.
Everyone sort of contributed. Scott finished.
Seconded by Chris Powers. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All right,
All right,
move to adjourn?
you know the drill
But
then.
what about these last 2 points? We want to get them off the agenda?
No, leave them right there.
No, even that.
Mitch
I'm
is in
leaving them
here.
there.
Those are Mitch's points.
I know, fast.
Yeah, but I want to leave them in. For as long as we have it.
Everybody said what he thought about Mitchell's attendance, so.
Right.
All right, I make a move, we adjourn.
Since January.
Second.
Oh, I
Seconded by Dave.
Aye.
We are adjourned. All in favor? Aye.
That's a slight. Why would you go to last night meeting?
And then last night, I don't know.
All right.
I worked and he was done.
That's really. That's even that.
No.